Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on the online motivation channel with me, Hilman. Today I'm gonna talk to you about learning from losses. Okay, what is it all about? It's a simple fact by just saying learning from mistakes. You see, a lot of times we often plan to succeed in various ways of our lives, whether to succeed in our business, to succeed in our studies, and to succeed in other various ways. The thing is, there's not many time that we actually spend time doing certain type of reflections when it comes to this type of things that we are pursuing. A lot of times we tend to look at things as just a failure. Okay, the thing about failures is it can either define you or it can either strengthen or weaken you. So what is it that you want, what is it about failure that you want to propel? I've had spoken in my past few lectures and in my past few videos regarding failures, which is not a fatal thing, right? Think about it this way, guys. When we talk about losses, right, usually when time to think about losses is always something that falls on the negative side. All right, hardly we talk about losses as something which is positive. All right, but the thing is, think it this way. What can we learn through that losses? All right, what are the message behind it? When things doesn't go through our way, all right, we have to understand a certain thing, which is why I always recommend to students, I always recommend to people to do some type of a reflection when things doesn't go through your way. Okay, reflections would always the purpose of a reflection is to calm yourself down and then to think things in a more logical and rational way. It's not to kind of like toss it apart, because without reflections, chances you might be living in denial, and we do not want denial to kind of like, you know, take a total control out of in our body. So we want you to start doing reflections every time things doesn't go through your way. Even if things go through your way, it's also recommendable to do some sort of a reflection, because as I said, reflections can be in a lot of time. A lot of times I always start off my reflections by just, you know, sitting in a room or maybe looking at something which is pretty, or something which is beautiful, like a scenery, and then I'll start to tap my legs, you know, tap on my feet, or maybe, you know, I do some type of motion which requires a bit of, you know, action from my hands or my feet. That helps to kind of like, you know, calm me down. During those reflections, I think about, okay, what I have done that leads to this particular failures, that leads to this particular flaw. And then of course, as much as we think about the failures and the flaw, as well as the losses, we also have to think about what I could have done the next time this type of thing happens. Alright, think about the positive thing. A lot of times we get depressed, we get a lot of anxiety out of small things. It's because the fact that we do not do any type of reflections, and the fact that a lot of times, you know, we have negative thoughts running into our mind, and that negative thoughts created a pattern in ourselves which is so-called considered like a maladaptive behavior. Alright, we don't want it to go to that extent. We don't want it to go to a certain extent where, you know, it created that pattern, because maladaptive behaviors, when it becomes part of you, it's really hard to change it, especially if it has already been embedded into you for a pretty long time. So before that maladaptive behavior starts creeping into yourself, we try to kind of like just restructure those negative thoughts. In my lectures, as well as many people know that I'm a CBT practitioner myself, a lot of times I challenge students, I challenge people with their thoughts. If they have any negative thoughts, it's part of my job to actually kind of like challenge those thoughts, because usually I will always ask them, okay, now that you have, you know, stumbled upon or you have experienced such losses, you have experienced such failure, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen right now? And of course they will list down a whole bunch of stuff, and a lot of the stuff sometimes are pretty much negative thoughts. Some of the stuff is pretty rational and realistic, while some of the stuff is just what they think is currently happening, what they think is currently taking place right now. There is no verification, there is no validation, there is no justification to what they think. And on most accounts, in a very common ground, a lot of times these negative thoughts is being impounded or is being brought forward because of what the particular person think about what other people think about them. You see, as I mentioned in some of my other lectures, what people think of you is not important at all, because at the end of the day, it is you who's going to live your life the way you want it. It is you who's going to, find success, who's going to, beat the odds to prove everyone wrong. So don't do it for them, do it for yourself. Okay? There is this saying, when you are fat, people would say, "Oh, you're fat. You're so fat." When you are thin, do you actually think that people will just stop criticizing you? Now they will say, "Oh, you're so thin, man. You look like a lamppost," or something like that. So regardless of what it is, there is no on either part of the sides, you will still be criticized. So, and you can't stop people from criticizing, you can't stop people from giving their opinion, although some of their opinion can be very nonsensical and very skeptical of you, but you don't have to have that inferior feeling, you have to have that complex feeling that what they say is the truth. In fact, those are some of the ways which I always try to challenge my clients or the people that I met, is that to challenge that, okay, what's the worst that can happen after this particular mishap, after this particular failure? What's the worst that can happen? Okay, even if that worst thing happened, what's going to be the outcome? So they will list down a lot of factors that is kind of like worrying them. So right now you see those negative thoughts is becoming to something that is like a worrying factor for them, and this worrying factor will just play around in their minds, in your mind, and then you will just keep on thinking about other thoughts which are negative. So what happens next is negative thoughts lead to negative feelings. Alright, so you start feeling self-doubt about yourself, you start having low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and that feeling will just end up to other forms of negative feelings, which will in the long run create a massive kind of worrying factors. Alright, and a lot of times what we can see in the long run, when these feelings have embedded into them, when this particular things has so-called get over them, it is hard to actually see on the positive side, because all these negative thoughts have already created a certain type of disease within a person. So much talk about negative automatic thoughts and stuff like that. Let's talk about the positive side. Okay, it is time when doing a reflection, alright, of course we ponder, or we kept thinking about that loss, right, that failure that we actually currently stumble upon. But do you know one thing? As I said many times, failure is not a fatal thing. Okay, it's not the end, maybe it's just the beginning. So now it's time to try to bring something, a new beginning out of that failure. What are we going to achieve through this failure? Okay, what can we do better next time when stumble upon this problem? Okay, they always say experience makes you stronger. Okay, now that you have a failure and this is part of your life experience, it makes you stronger. So the next time you know exactly what to do, how to counter this problem. Okay, failures must be looked as a challenge, not a burden. Alright, it has to be looked as a challenge, and this challenge will then elevate you to something which is much more propelling towards the future. A lot of times students, whether in high school or in college, after stumbling upon one massive failure, they start to just give up and then let the failure overwhelm them, so much so that it slowly is eating them up. We don't know for that fact that that failure could be something to bounce back from. So it is sometimes, I mention again, something that is so-called easier said than done. But have we ever thought that the fact that these failures, so-called these losses and failures, is temporary, that we can actually do better the next time? All right, just like in sports, maybe this particular season, all right, we lost the championship. There's always next season to fight for. Imagine if everyone starts to ponder and just think about that particular failure. No one is actually going to buck up and then just starts to do something better for the next coming round. So life can be like a football or a sports season. All right, there will be one season that you fail, but the upcoming season you fight towards better success. So a lot of times, one of the major issues which help get everyone being held back through failures is the fact that they don't see any good coming out of it. I know it's hard, my friends. All right, I've been through failures before. In fact, I've been through many phases of failures. But a lot of times in the past, in the beginning, when I stumble upon the failures, I tend to, of course, feel down, and it might take some time for you to kind of like get over that failure. All right, well, one thing that I always reassure myself is the next time I will do better. All right, that's the least that you can inject into your mind right now. The next time you're going to do better, because the next time I know what to do when I'm faced with such ordeal, when I'm faced with such challenge. Okay, a lot of times we have to understand that failures can be a source of a new challenge for us. We tend to think that failure is the end of us. Therefore, a lot of times we just kind of like submerge into that failure, and then we don't do anything productive to actually improve ourselves. Now, my advice right now, or my 2 cents opinion, switch to another mode where failures is the beginning of awesomeness. Okay, well, I mean, why I'm saying this is because through that failures right now, you have the tools, you have the knowledge, you have the experience to know what to do next time. All right, and then now the next time you're not going to do the same mistakes anymore. Okay, so it's more of a trying thing. When you keep on trying one way or another, one day you will succeed, all right, with whatever that you wish to pursue. A lot of times we find it difficult to get over something is because we kept thinking about it, and then there's a lot of negative thoughts, followed by a lot of negative emotional feelings, and then followed by a lot of our actions that are driven by those negativity. Now it's time to actually think so-called outside the box, right? And then think about looking at failures or looking at losses as a source of inspiration. I know it's hard because, whoa, how do you expect me to look into failures as a source of inspiration? Where are you coming from? That's exactly what it is. Where am I coming from? I'm coming from a side that I wish to see myself being surprised, being mesmerized, because after bouncing back from failures, all right, and then you stumble upon or you achieve success after a whole series of failures, my friends, that will be the biggest reward of all. So I want you to have that feeling, all right? I want you to look back one day, and then when people say, what is the secret to your success? Your answer is nothing more than just after stumbling into lots of failures. That makes someone being very humble towards oneself. Okay, failures doesn't define us, but it has to strengthen us. Don't let failures be the one is like the factors that weakens us most of the time. So a lot of times we tend to think that failures is a negative thing. Of course it's a negative thing, but we never thought of doing certain type of reflections to kind of like help us to see things from a perspective which is a positive perspective that can come out to greater positive outcomes. A lot of times we just think, oh, this is just going to be a waste of time, I'm going to fail again. You never know. You can never predict the future, all right? The next time you do it, you'll be better with it. I can assure you, one mistake doesn't prove anything. The second mistake doesn't prove anything as well. But when you keep on doing it again and again, repeated it, learn from your past mistakes, you will finally reach that promised land. So in general, I'm just going to say, look at losses and failures as a source of inspiration, as a challenge for you to do better next time. Okay, don't look at it as the end of the road and something like that. Okay, it takes quite a while, I understand, to kind of like get over certain failures. It shouldn't. Okay, for some people say that, okay, you're talking about failures in terms of examination, you're talking about failures in terms of certain things. How about failures in a relationship? My friends, failures in anything can be looked upon as the same type of failures for everything. Okay, in a relationship, because I do lots of relationship lectures as well. In a relationship, okay, maybe one failed relationship, the next time, all right, you will be another relationship, but this time, whatever mistakes that you did before in the past relationship, you try to improve on it and then makes it better. We always hope for a better and for a long-lasting relationship for our next one and next one and the next one as well. So it's still the same as how you handle, you know, certain types of problems like failing in an examination or in other factors of failures. But what I don't want you to think is to just think and dwell upon that failure and then think that's it, this is just what it is all about. You know, I'm a failure, a loser. No, by self-proclaiming such negative thoughts, such negative remarks on yourself, it is a very damaging act upon yourself. You created a certain pattern that, without you realizing it, is slowly, you know, deteriorating you into a useless person. You don't want that to happen to you. You don't want that to overcome you, to overwhelm you, and you don't want that to control over you. A person who learns from mistakes and then makes it better the next time and succeed through those series of mistakes that they make is a person who is in control of themselves. And the most important thing in life is to have control of yourself. Don't let people tell you what to do. Don't let people, you know, strategize things for you. Have control of yourself, which is why in my previous lectures we talk about, you know, having an interest, having a passion, all right, and then move towards those passion and let those passion, you know, be what defines you in the future. So that's my 2 cents opinion about learning from losses and learning from failures. All right, we spoke about failures a lot of times, and then I'm going to repeat it again and again from time to time regarding failures, because failures is a bad thing or is a negative thing, but failures should be looked in the light of you trying to perfect yourself, or you trying to learn from those mistakes that led to the failures, and then this time we're going to move something high up there, using those failures as a source of inspiration for you to not commit those past mistakes, but this time you want to perfect that pattern, you want to perfect and make it better to succeed in your future endeavors. So that's it for me today, talking to you about learning from losses, learning from failures. Alright, catch up my other videos on YouTube or on my website, theonlinemotivation.com, where we will talk about various other factors, alright, in terms of things that can, you know, drown us and things that can actually elevate us forward. So I'm Hilman Basri signing out from the Online Motivation team. Okay, love you guys, stay positive, stay creative, and then I'll see you next time in my other videos. Thank you.